Dyno day. Well, it's prep day. Dyno day is tomorrow. It's time to go ahead and get started here on the crank pulley that we have to remove. The aftermarket ATI damper I have here that's press fit and blah, blah, blah. So it's going to be hell to get that off. So we'll get this crank pulley knocked out, and then that effectively should be all of its little issues before the dyno. I mean, that's fuel pressure's good, fuel pump's good. There, we did that. Fuel pressure sensor is good. And now we're gonna have crank signal. So ethanol signal's there. I mean, it's all there. So let's go ahead and pull the radiator out and the clutch fan and the fan shroud. And we should have enough space to get a breaker bar in there and a cheater bar and everything we need to get this damper off.
He was trying to say that the crank sensor line itself was having interference and needed to be sheathed. But I mean, it's literally so safe. It's not by any other electronics, just oil flow here and oil flow here. There's nothing going on with it that would cause anything. So if this crank sensor works with the OEM pulley without any interference, we know it's this trigger wheel. I mean, the car barely starts right now because of that trigger wheel. Just whoop, up, bang, 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 and do it so many times. So hopefully we can start it with this new setup too. Damn, I love this thing. I really want it to work, but we're gonna remove it for dyno tuning and then try and figure out later why it was doing it. Because if I have no crank signal issues without this thing,
and we could say put the RPM filtering sync back to OEM, which essentially is how sensitive the crank signal is at high RPM and how I was having to dull it down because it wasn't reading full signal at high RPM. So I had to basically turn it off OEM sensitivity and back it down. And that's not safe. You need to know exactly what speed your crank is at, especially when you're clutch kicking at high RPM and doing all that. So hopefully this crank pulley eliminates crank signal loss at 3 on the RPM filtering. And then we can take it back to OEM and maybe it'll be good there. And if so, then fuck it. I'll just rev to 7,500 or 7,400 instead of 8. My cams didn't even breathe at 8, so it's fine. I love though how this thing looks without a radiator, and it makes you realize how cool a rear mount would be. Just being able to see everything from the intercooler piping and the air intake and that big ATI damper and like everything. I mean, I wish this was how it looked.
time for that infamous crank bolt.
This little guy is so useful for locking out the frame. We'll go ahead and bolt that in there and blast out this crank bolt real quick. And then we can set up this ATI damper removal tool and get this crank hub pulled off. So what do you do when you have a 300 foot-pound crank bolt? Well, do this. So this will be our setup. We've got a cheater bar, the jack pad. Then we have the mother of all breaker bars, which I will squat press after we heat this on up. Here we go. Okay. Time for this guy.
$236, that's close enough. Let's start moving it. That's good. That is a removed crank pulley. And there's my Woodruff key, safe and sound.
Let's call it an evening, go to sleep, see you in the morning. Do a little, and it'll be daytime, and we will be back. And I will have gotten the right torque wrench from the shop, which is, you know, we have some nice ones, like nice ones for engines and stuff like that. But there's nothing like this complete and total brute that we use for, you know, anything that's 300 foot-pounds. We got it to about 300, I'd guess 20 or 340 foot-pounds. We got 300 on the first bar, and then I put a breaker on it and gave it a little extra snug, since we will see higher RPMs on this damper. But there we go, nice and tight. It's time to throw the belt on and then the radiator, and we'll get it bled and start it right up. Radiator is in, kind of basically bled, and then clutch fans in and tight. I'm not gonna really try and change anything with the crank just yet, because it was supposed to have the same trigger wheel as OEM, which is 60 teeth with a 2-teeth gap, so a 62 trigger. So we'll take the battery tenders off and try and start it with this new wheel. Oh wow, okay. Here's number one. Let's go ahead and get them both out. Try. Remember, it would just bang forever when I was trying to start it before. So far, so good. Little bleeds here and there. It cooled down for a little bit, and I took a second, I was thinking about it, and I realized I can probably log this using trigger scopes, the cam and crank sensor, and figure out if it is a cam or a crank sensor, and just swap it right now, because I have parts at the shop. So I'll grab the laptop and I'll report back. Okay, I am inside the car. ECU is on and connected. If you go up here on the ECU controls, I remember seeing and then reading about right there is trigger scope. So we'll click that. I will start cranking and then hit capture and get the pops and the bangs and stuff, and then we'll check trigger scope 1 and trigger scope 2 there and there for their what they're reading and their voltage, and then I will report back. Well, that very quickly showed us that we don't have trigger 2 signal, or much of it at all. I'm gonna put a new one in it. I had Ian get me one same day over at Solo Motorsports, so thank you so much, Ian. Chris picked it up. I'm back here at the house with it, and let's go ahead and throw it in. Go ahead and wiggle that out. It looks totally fine. Looks exactly the same. 3-pin. Let's get it installed. You know this spiel. Let me get down. I'm gonna go ahead and get a little bit of sleep, and we'll get up at like 5:30 and head over to the shop with this, do a little bit more testing, and we have to be at Doug's on the dyno at 9:30, so I'll get there about 8:45, and we'll eat some breakfast and we'll warm it up. Drive it around the lot, test it, pray that this fixed our issue. All right, see y'all in a little bit. Good morning. We are at my shop, just going to tighten down the fuel line with some AN wrenches and get a 19 to tighten down the Vanis oil feed line. Then we can go ahead and do some more starting testing. It is banging. We just need to go ahead and take a look at some other issues that could possibly be causing that. Send some logs over to a friend, and then we will go ahead and pack up and head to Doug and let him figure out the rest of it. There's an issue or a worry that the cam sensor is just picking up at a wrong rotation. Slightly off, but the cam is not out of time. We know it's just a 4-degree advance, and maybe it's something to do with the M54 cam as well. I don't know. We have to dive into this. So we may be taking the valve cover off. Who knows? I'll get the electric wrench just in case. And we'll head on over to Doug's. And doing a trigger scope check, and it was still banging and not really liking to start, but every once in a while. But look, we've got movement now on trigger scope 2. So more work to do, but this is looking better. All right, we have the crank at TDC. We have the cams available. Everything looks to be very much in time. Yeah, okay, so the Vanos is definitely closed as well. All right, this is all fine. We're gonna put this all back together and change a couple more cam settings and see if we can find this issue. I've got 15 minutes. I'm not like playing either. It is 8:24. I am way behind. So let's figure this out, put it back together, and get to the dyno. Haha, it's back together completely. It is 8:45, and shit. We're gonna leave that out and we'll put it in when we get there. Okay, we are here. Spoke with Doug, got it unstrapped. Let's go ahead and try and see how many bangs. Ooh, I have my steering wheel, thank goodness. Oh, how many bangs it takes to get it off the trailer. We gotta do this for a little bit. We will report back, I guess, huh? Let's try this one first. All right, cool. Go ahead and report back. Couple 100 pounds worth of sand and tires. Trying to get some grip out of the 255. He's mad that I'm even running him, but that's as big as I got. We're about to set base timing again with the new crank pulley, and you can't see it. Like, I had that awesome ATI damper, excuse me, with the markings and that little pin, but now we just have the marks on the block of the crank. So mirror and no clutch fan. We'll go ahead and knock that out and get started on pulleys. I guess we had fuel pressure issues before, and now we're having some sort of breakup issues. We checked one of the plugs thinking they were too small, and they're gapped at like 21. So, I mean, that's not small enough. That's a little tight, but it's not tight enough to cause this issue. This is getting really fucking stressful. Okay. Well, I'm at the shop. Got the car off the trailer, and I've got a plan. I've gone ahead and marked these coil packs, and I'm gonna go ahead and swap all of them out for the 6 coils I have in this motor over here. And this was the 3-liter naturally aspirated motor that we got with the red car originally, and it's just been an absolute tank. And we know that it wasn't breaking up with these Bremmy coils, and I know the Bosches are better, but we're gonna go ahead and pull every one of these Bremmys out. I already took one out and made sure these fit just in case. And we're gonna put those in and try those up and down the road. And if those break up, then we know we have an issue. Fits 20. It might be 20. It may be gap 20 over 21. Let's see. That felt pretty tight. Nope, that one's 21. Okay, we have a set of test coils. So let's just pray they work. And maybe this fixes our breakup issue. So it sounded pretty happy. I feel like there could be a smoother idle slightly, but I don't hear like a big miss. I just drove it up and down the road a few times to get it warmed up. Didn't beat on it or anything like that. We're at 122 oil, 200 on the coolant, so I'll bleed it. Doesn't sound perfect, but it really seems happy. It's driving smoothly and revving well. I got into boost a little bit in 2nd and 3rd gear and didn't seem to break up. like to my knowledge, it sounded right. It was only for a short period of time. The road is so busy up there. I'm gonna have to wait till this afternoon or this evening when it clears out a little bit, but there's some semis unloading and people doing stuff, and it's just not a good time to do third gear pulls. Yeah, we're just gonna let it cool down, let the road clear out, and we'll go drive some this afternoon. But for now, let's go ahead and get started on the cam sensor. I now believe that's our only issue, right? So we'll hook up the computer, we'll start shaking the harness, we'll grab Chris's and maybe put his in, see if that fixes it. We're just gonna do a couple things. So ignition is done, onto the cam. Died of low battery anyways. Oops. I was bleeding again. Oops.